There is nothing more important when it comes to being a great basketball player than having a high basketball IQ. Obviously, it's important to be skilled and it's important to be strong and athletic, but literally none of that matters if you don't understand how and when to apply those things. And this is generally the area that holds players back the most.
It's so striking to me, playing in the NBA for 15 years, the best players are the smartest players. The best players are the savants. The best players are the ones that can manipulate the game using their mind and not just their body. You know, if you were to like look at a graph, and it's like with some anomalies and some outliers in terms of athleticism, you know, it's a pretty straight line if you were to sort of like put a plot on every NBA player. It's a very different looking graph if you were to plot basketball intelligence and the way certain people think the game and manipulate the game. And when those great athletes are also great thinkers, well, then you get some of the greatest players ever.
But the good news is that you can make improvements in this area very, very quick. And I promise you that after watching this video, you're going to have a significantly higher basketball IQ, and that's going to lead to you scoring more points, making more plays, and overall just having more success on the court. One of the things that I talk about a lot is how much better I've gotten at basketball since I stopped playing. So back in the days when I was training every single day and obsessing over how I was going to become the player that I wanted to be, my physical skills like shooting, ball handling, all that was worse than it is now when I'm not doing any of that sort of stuff. And my basketball IQ was so much worse back then in comparison to what it is now. Now, the funny thing about that first part, my shooting and ball handling and all the physical skills being way better now than it was back then, a big reason for that is because my basketball IQ is so much higher. My understanding of the game is so much higher now. And that leads to me being better, even though I'm not training the same way that I was back then. Looking back, I actually had no real idea what made up basketball IQ beyond like a surface level understanding back then. And I wasn't a dumb player by any means. I just didn't really understand what fully went into that. And I was missing a ton of understanding that would have helped me to actually apply my skills at a high level. So I truly believe that I never played up to what my potential was. So in this video, I want to give you those keys so that that isn't you. Now, there's a good chance that you haven't heard of any of these things before. Even if you have, you maybe heard of one, two, I guarantee that you've not heard of all three things that we're going to talk about today. So make sure you stay tuned. The first thing that's really, really important for you to understand if you want to have a high basketball IQ is actually understanding what the purpose of basketball is. What should your goal be when you're on the court, specifically on offense? Ultimately, the game is all about advantages, right? That's a very important word for you to understand is advantages. We want to create and exploit advantages as much as possible, and the more consistently that we do that, the better that we're going to be. This is the most important concept for you to get if you want to be great on offense. The question of when do I shoot, when do I drive, when do I pass, which direction do I go, when do I do this, when do I do that? All of those things are going to be answered when you understand and you ask yourself the question, where is the advantage? Who has the advantage? What advantage is there or is there not right now? Now, there's multiple types of advantages when I say that word. First of all, we have kind of the obvious ones like a size and athleticism advantage. So sometimes you're bigger than somebody, or maybe you're smaller than somebody, but maybe when you're smaller than that, maybe you're also a little bit quicker than they are. So when you have something physically that they don't have, that is an advantage for you. Here's JJ Redick and LeBron talking about this exact topic.
I think what's interesting about today's NBA is what smart coaches do and what smart players do, which did not happen when I first got to the NBA. Nearly every possession, all you're doing is trying to find the right matchup.
A target.
You're playing chess on the possession.
Target basketball. Yeah.
And that to me is the biggest difference.
Yeah, that never happened.
Bro, I was watching a game. I was calling a game, actually. Guy had the ball, good offensive player, had the ball at the top of the key. And they're playing the Clippers. And end of the shot clock, 7 on the clock. Another guy off the ball is being guarded by Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes up to set a pick and roll for the guy with the ball.
And it makes no sense.
And I'm like, that's just low basketball IQ.
That's just low basketball IQ.
Keep Kawhi away from the ball.
That is low basketball IQ. That is low basketball IQ.
Now, the next type of advantage is a numbers advantage. So this would be like a 5-on-4 or a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, where the offense has more players than the defense does. This happens when 2 players are forced to guard 1. So for example, a player gets beat on the wing, and that forces a help defender to rotate over, and now there's 2 players who are guarding 1 player, meaning there's a 4-on-3 for the offense everywhere else. And if we move the ball out of that, it means somebody's going to be open either for a shot or another drive potentially. That's a numbers advantage, and it's a very important concept to understand, something that we're going to dive into in a little bit here. And the next type of advantage is a momentum advantage or a positioning advantage. So we can think about like a closeout, which we're going to dive into. When that defender is coming towards you, you can take advantage of their momentum by going the other direction, going towards the basketball. They're coming towards you, right? If they don't get a good angle on a closeout, you can take advantage of that as well. So having an understanding of all 3 of these different types of advantages, so the size or athleticism advantage, having a numbers advantage, and then a positioning / momentum advantage, we'll kind of dive into this a little bit here. Our goal on offense is always to create and exploit at least one of those advantages every single possession. When the possession starts, typically there is no advantage. Normally the ball is just out in the perimeter somewhere and the defense is in a pretty good position. There might not be any sort of advantages. Obviously, we talked about it already. There might be a size advantage somewhere, right? But if the defense hasn't had to move yet, they probably have the matchup that they want. So there's probably not an advantage. So we have to find ways to create those advantages if we want to create those opportunities to score consistently. We do this with actions, okay? So actions are an important word to understand as well. All that it means is something that the offense does that forces the defense to respond or to react. And the 2 really, really common types of actions that pretty much are run by every team at every level would be a pin down, or something that's called an away screen or a down screen, and then a ball screen. Those are examples of actions that almost everybody does, but it forces the defense to react or to do something in order to not give up an advantage. So for example, let's say the offense goes with a ball screen, right? And the defense decides that they're going to play an over and drop coverage in order to guard that ball screen. So the ball handler's defender is going to go over the ball screen, and the screener's defender is going to drop maybe towards the 3-point line or maybe a step inside the 3-point line. And when that happens, that can lead to the offense creating a numbers advantage. So while that ball handler's defender is trailing over the screen, if the ball handler does a good job, they might be able to keep them behind them. And now we have a 5-on-4 in front of that player. Okay, so at that point, you're just kind of reading what happens. Maybe that drop defender stays with the ball handler and the ball handler can make a pass to the roll and the roll is going to be open, right? Or maybe when that happens, the corner defender steps in to tag or take away the roll, and now that ball handler can make a pass out to the corner because what they just created is a 3-on-2. There's 2 defenders to guard 3 players. So they make their choice on who they're going to guard, and they're going to give up something. There's that numbers advantage that we talked about right there. So by getting to an action, we can force the defense to take something away, but by doing that, they're oftentimes going to give up something else. And in this case, it's going to be a numbers advantage. Another thing that could happen in this same situation is maybe they decide to switch the ball screen. And now all of a sudden, maybe that creates a size or athleticism mismatch. Maybe they switch a slow big onto a quick point guard, and now that quick point guard can think about going at that big, dragging them out to the perimeter and then going at them. Or maybe they switch that and all of a sudden there's a point guard who has to guard a big in the post, and now the offense gets in the ball so that they can go to work and have that size advantage right there. So whenever the defense plays some sort of coverage or guards an action a certain way, it's going to give up something, and if we can identify that and exploit it, we're going to be able to create efficient offense. Now, the same thing can happen with pin downs or away screens. So let's say that the defense decides they don't want to switch it. They're going to chase over the pin down. So that screen is being set, and that defender chases that player over the screen. So that player curls the basket. That means all of a sudden they're giving up a positioning advantage, and now we might be able to make a pass for a layup or for some sort of shot. The point of all that being, we want to utilize actions in order to make the defense do something. And when we make the defense do something, they're going to give something else up by guarding that action. And just ball screens and pin downs are 2 examples of very, very common actions that we can use. And if you want to be a high IQ player, you have to be able to effectively use actions. Now, I go way more in depth into these different actions, into the different reads with these actions, how to actually find these advantages and consistently exploit them inside of my free Basketball IQ Masterclass, which is linked down below. This Masterclass is over an hour long and goes into all of that and a lot more that I'll cover later on in this video. Like I said, completely free, going to help you start scoring more points, making more plays, overall just being more successful on the court. So once this video is over, make sure you check that out. It's going to be down in the description down below. One of the most important things that I've ever released for sure. And we go way deeper into this concept of actions creating advantages, and ultimately if you want to be a great offensive player, you have to have a good understanding of this so that you understand how to use those skills. How do you use your shooting abilities and your ball handling abilities, the stuff that you work on, that you practice? How do you actually apply it so that it leads to game results, game success? And that's what we go into in that. Like I said, that'll be linked down below. Make sure you check that out after this video. Now, one of the most important advantages for you to recognize and exploit is a momentum advantage, also known as a closeout. So you probably know what a closeout is, but if you don't, it's when someone passes you the ball and your defender rotates out to guard you on the ball and take away the shot. Essentially, they're closing the space between you and them when you catch the ball. That's what a closeout is. Generally, they're moving from help defense over to you to on-ball defense. And when they do this, that's like the most difficult thing that you have to do on defense, is close out effectively to take away the shot and not give up a drive. Really, really difficult to do, especially at a high level when players are quicker, bigger, stronger, faster, whatever the case may be. It's really, really hard to do. So this is what we call momentum advantage that we can take, that we can exploit. When that defender's momentum is coming towards us, when we go the other way, we go at them, we go past them, they have to not only go with us, they have to first slow down, come to a complete stop, and then change the direction that their momentum is going before they can actually be able to stop us from driving, right? So that's situations that we want to look to hunt. By effectively attacking these closeouts when you catch the basketball, you take advantage of your defender when they're at their most vulnerable state. And this is the best time to be able to look to get to the paint with a drive. So players ask like, hey, when should I drive? I'm having trouble driving to the basket, getting to the paint. The best time to do that is when there's a closeout, because that defender's momentum is a vulnerable state for them, and you can exploit that. Now, when you effectively do this, it's going to lead to a numbers advantage. You're going to get by your initial defender, and that means that we're going to be in a 5-on-4 situation. There is 4 players left to guard 5 players. Now, against a bad team, no one's going to rotate over, and you're going to probably go get a layup. Against a bad defensive team. Against a good defensive team, or at least a decent one, someone's going to rotate over and help to stop you from getting a layup. And then at that point, all you're going to do is just make a pass to whoever's open. So wherever that help comes from, who does that now leave open? Maybe it means you kick the ball out to the corner, and now maybe they have an open shot, or maybe they now have a closeout to attack, and then maybe they get a layup, or maybe they get another kick out to an open shot. This is what we want to do, and this is called playing in 0.5 decisions. Here's Steph Curry talking about exactly what 0.5 decisions are.
I'm either catching and shooting, I'm catching and ripping, or I'm catching and giving up. If you held the ball for 1 second, that's a grenade and it blew up and you're done. All right, so think about that. I need to have 0.5 seconds to make a decision, and that's when you start to get the dominoes to fall.
So essentially, when we're in situations where we're not using an action, so just a refresher, action would be pin down, ball screen. Those things take a little bit more time to develop, right? If you're using a ball screen, you're going to have the ball in your hands if you're the ball handler for probably a couple seconds, a few seconds, whatever. We have to let that action actually develop so that the defense gives us an advantage. But when we already have the momentum advantage, we want to take advantage of that very, very quickly, and we have half a second to do it. So whenever we're in these situations where we're not using an action, so someone just passed you the basketball, we want to do something within half a second. So we're either shooting it, we're driving it, or if we can't do either of those things, we're going to move the basketball. The reason being is kind of what we've already talked about. The defense is at their most vulnerable state when you first catch the ball, because they're rotating over to close out to you. Not just your defender, but also the help is rotating too. So if you go early, there's a chance that they aren't there yet, they're late getting there, and now all of a sudden the whole defense is in a really bad spot because you made a quick decision with the basketball in your hands. So the checklist really is, when you catch the ball, can I shoot it? Yes. Okay, well then shoot it. No. Well, can I drive? Okay, yes, I can drive. Well, I'm going to drive now. Okay, I can't shoot it. I can't drive it. I got to move it immediately. I have to immediately move the basketball, and then we got to look to get to another action. So if I have to move the ball, I might immediately go set a pin down. Now I'm going to go, and that's an action that we're getting to. Now we're going to force the defense to guard that a certain way, which is going to give us some sort of advantage to potentially exploit. So you kind of see how all this stuff starts to work together. We're either playing in what an action is, or in this situation, this is called dominoes. By doing this, by playing with 0.5 decisions, we keep the defense in scramble mode and disadvantage mode, which is going to make it easier for us to score and for our team in general to score. This scramble mode is called dominoes. Think of it like if you have a whole bunch of dominoes lined up and you knock one down, how it just knocks the whole line down one after the other. That's what happens when we play in 0.5 decisions. So we continuously exploit these defenders and their momentum, right? That's what we want to be able to do. You catch the ball and attack a closeout. Now you draw help and you make a kick out. Now they, draw a rotating defender. They attack that closeout to another kick out. And now we have an open three. That's what happens when we play in dominoes. We make those quick 0.5 decisions. That's high IQ basketball. And if you want to be a high IQ player, you need to get great at recognizing and hunting advantages, making 0.5 decisions, and getting the defense into dominoes mode. Incredibly important part of being great and being consistent on the offensive end. Now, the second key to developing a really high basketball IQ is watching. And I want you to really listen here, because this is something that I haven't heard anybody really talk about. And this is something that will transform everything for you. This is something that if I had this as a player, I would have been so much more successful, but I didn't understand this concept back then. Humans have an incredible gift of what's called empathy. Unless you're a psychopath, sociopath, then you might not have this. But most humans have a very important trait called empathy, which just means that you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and be able to kind of feel what they're feeling or experience what they're experiencing. You see somebody who's going through a tough situation, you have the ability to kind of put yourself in their shoes and be like, man, how would I feel if I was in that situation? Man, that's tough for them that they're going through that, because I can imagine how that would feel, right? We have that ability to do that. Now, this is a great trait to have, not just because it makes you a better person, but it actually allows you to learn skills and improve way faster if you understand how to use this. We also have what's called mirror neurons, which just means that our brain can see somebody do something and mirror that action in your own mind as if you're the one who's doing it. Just as a kind of a really basic example, this is why you can see a video of somebody getting hit by something or stubbing their toe, and you almost have a physical reaction to it. That's because your brain can see something and be able to mirror that you're almost the one who's going through it. That's where that kind of empathy and those mirror neurons kind of cross right here. I know I'm going into a lot of brain science here, but just stick with me, because I'm going to explain to you how this relates to you developing a high basketball IQ. And so when you're watching a coach demonstrate a drill or a trainer demonstrate a drill, those mirror neurons are firing, and that's why you can see somebody do something, you can replicate it. That's literally just mirror neurons going to work inside your brain as that's happening. This can also happen though when you watch somebody play, and you have the ability to put yourself in their shoes. And because of that, those mirror neurons can almost make it feel in your own brain, you're the one who's doing that action. You're the one who's actually going through that. I say all this because it leads to an absolutely critical part of you developing a high basketball IQ, and that's watching. You have to be watching as much basketball as possible. You need to be around the game as much as possible, not just to learn some of the terms, the actions like pin downs and ball screens and the reads and stuff. That stuff's important, right? We've obviously talked about that already, and that stuff matters. But just having an understanding of okay, that person made this decision in that situation and it worked for them, or that person did that and it didn't work for them, or hey, that person did that, I've never seen that before, but it worked. All of a sudden, you're exposing your brain to a whole bunch of new things, new solutions, new things for you to be able to try. And the whole time, if you're really intently watching, your brain is almost repeating those things as if you're the one who's executing it. When you can kind of put yourself in that person's shoes, you say, hey, I saw what they did in that situation. I've been in that situation before. What would I do there? What have I done in the past there? And you're able to kind of replay that in your mind. That's an incredibly powerful thing for you to be able to do. You might see a solution you've never experienced before. You could be exposed to something that completely changes the way that you play. The more that you watch and study the game, the more that you're going to see that same stuff start to pop up for you in games. You're going to recognize opportunities that you maybe haven't recognized before, and you're going to have way more solutions to things that you wouldn't have if you didn't spend time intently watching. Like I mentioned earlier, my basketball IQ is 1,000,000 times higher now than it was when I played, and the biggest reason for that is because I'm around the game so much. I'll get on Synergy or Second Spectrum, which is just websites that kind of clip and break down footage and kind of categorize it. But this, even back when I would just watch things on YouTube. That's also like, it would be the same process. I'll get on Synergy and I'll watch how Steph Curry consistently gets to the rim. Like, I remember watching the 2022 NBA Finals against Boston, and I just noticed, like, Steph gets to the rim so easily, like maybe easier than anybody else in the NBA. And he's not physically dominant the way that some of these other guys are, but yet he gets to the rim easier than a lot of these dudes who physically are better than him. They're more athletic, they're bigger, but he makes it look so easy. Why is that? And I just spent so much time just watching all these clips of him driving to the basket and trying to figure out what is it that he's doing. And so eventually, as you start to watch enough, you see patterns, you see things that kind of repeat and jump out to you. And I'm getting so many mental reps just by going through and intently watching these situations. So I noticed, like, okay, hey, his change of pace is great. The way that he's able to kind of raise up in those situations and get his center to relax and then boom, hit 100%. Now all of a sudden, I'm noticing myself when I play start to do these things just kind of innately. I haven't worked on them, but I've spent so much time watching and I've gotten so many mental reps. And those mirror neurons have been firing, and I've been able to put myself in his shoes and say, oh, wow, okay, I feel like I've been in situations like that. Or when I'm in a situation like that the next time, it's almost like a flashback to that, right? And so not only am I thinking about the game, am I thinking to myself, oh, how is he doing this? But the things that he's doing are literally becoming a part of who I am just because I'm intently watching it. I'm taking time to do that, right? This is a very deep thing. It's a very powerful thing. And I had no idea of this when I was a player. Like, I had no idea why. Obviously, everyone will tell you to watch film, but why? It's because when you intently watch, the things that you're watching can actually become a part of you without you even having to physically work on them. And I'll give you a perfect example of how this works. So there's a finish that's commonly referred to as a Pinoy step, right? It's like on that second to last step for your layup, you're like shot faking basically. And this is something that I've never worked on before, never have. Not even something that I've like demonstrated in a workout ever. Like I've never done it. I was playing a couple weeks ago with some of my college guys. I was playing pickup and I was on a fast break. It was me and then one defender on a fast break. And they're kind of like timing me up to try and block me. And so I just kind of like out of nowhere just went to the Pinoy step. Just that first step shot fake. They jumped early and then I was able to finish. And I've never done that before. Never practiced it, never even thought about doing it. But because two things, there's a player that I coach that does it all the time in games, like every game they do it. And they're the first player that I really was around who did it all the time. And so I was constantly watching them do that. Like every game, every practice, I'd see him do it. But like, okay, that was a nice, like I would see it all the time. I was just seeing it. I'd watch a breakdown on Tyrese Halliburton do the same thing where I've never practiced it, but I've watched it enough that in that moment, in that situation, it just kind of came out, right? And you can say, well, you know, how do you do that without practicing? Your brain is incredibly powerful. So when you expose it to these different things, you're going to be able to have more solutions to problems, which that's all high IQ players are, is they understand the solutions to problems. They're really good at that. And if you want to become great at that, watching is such an important thing to be able to do. So here's my challenge for you. Like I was talking about earlier, I literally just watched a bunch of clips of Steph Curry get into the rim to try and figure out what is it that he does that allows him to get to the basket, to get to the paint so easily. So I'm going to link a video somewhere right here, probably above, that I want you to check out and just go through and watch and study and see what you can pick apart and find when it comes to how he's able to consistently get by his defender, get to the rim. The whole way through, from before he has the ball or the beginning of when he has the ball, all the way through to the finish. What are things that you start to pick up on? You might have to watch through clips a couple times. You might have to slow it down and maybe go at 0.25 speed for a couple clips right there, just to kind of get a sense of that. Really pick apart the details in each clip. Take notes on these things, write down the things that jump out to you, and then come back and just leave in the comments what you found. That's my challenge to you. I'm very interested to see what you find and what I can read in the comments here, and how well you're able to kind of like pick apart the details, things you find, even things that might not seem important right away. If you start to see them over and over and over again, you can imagine that there's some purpose for that right there. So that's my challenge to you. So I'd love it if you comment down below. I'd love to go through and see that. But my purpose for this is I want you to recognize that you can literally do this for any skill that you want to get better at. Grayson Allen led the league in 3-point percentage this year. Why? How? How did he do that? I guarantee you, if you go watch a bunch of his clips, you go watch a bunch of Grayson Allen 3-point highlights, you're going to start to see some things that are going to give you clues on how. You're going to start to see the way that he relocates, the way that he moves into shots, the way that he comes off of screens, or what he does when he catches the ball, what he does on his release. You're going to start to notice some things, and as you study it intently enough, that's going to start to become a part of who you are as a player as well. Tyrese Halliburton led the league in assists. Why? How? What does he do? What makes it so that he's able to pass the ball at such a high level or get such a high number of assists? When you go and you watch and you study those clips, you're going to be able to figure that out, find patterns, and a lot of the things that he does are going to become a part of who you are. And again, part of the biggest part, really ultimately, we break down what a high IQ basketball player is. It's a player who has solutions to problems. And by watching, you're going to find more solutions to problems, but it's going to instantly make you a higher IQ player, right? Such a powerful thing for you to do if you want to take your basketball IQ to the next level. And the last key to developing a high basketball IQ is being around the game. There's a saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time around. And I think in today's world, we actually really need to consider that also means the 5 people that you watch and listen to the most. And so how much time are you spending watching basketball breakdowns and deep dives? And how much time are you spending listening to basketball podcasts and stuff that's going to help you increase your understanding, your knowledge of the game? How much time are you spending around the game, not just in person, but online as well? You want to be around things, around the game as much as you possibly can, consume as much as you possibly can, learn as much as you possibly can. And by doing that, you're actually going to become what it is that you want to be. Everybody wants to be a great player. And when I was a player, right, I thought the same way that a lot of players do, a lot of players that I talk to, that I coach, that I train now, they think the same way, where it's like, okay, what drill do I need to do? What workout do I need to do? What are the tips and tricks that can help me to score more points? What all these like surface level things, right? We want like the quick fixes. Ultimately, what we actually need is we need to become the person that is deserving of the success we want. We want the success of a great player. Well, we have to become the person that great player is. We need to start to think that way. We need to, that needs to be who we are, not just what we do. And so we do that, we become that by immersing ourselves into this, by constantly being around it, right? So evaluate that for yourself. The 5 people that you watch or listen to online, like how much of that is feeding into who you are as a basketball player, right? Because again, just like the 5 people that you spend the most time with in person, if you're spending no time learning the game, studying the game, how do you start to become a person who is great at it, who has a high basketball IQ, who understands it at a deep level if you're not around it ever? So when you want to, if you want to become that, surround yourself with that. Surround yourself with high-level people and high-level resources, and you're going to become the player that you want, and you're ultimately going to develop that IQ that you want to have. Like I said, there's nothing more important to your success as a basketball player than having a high basketball IQ. And if you feel like you put in the work and you develop some physical skills, and that's something that you take seriously, but you still feel like you aren't where you want to be as a player, there's a very good chance it's because you don't have the necessary understanding and basketball IQ to allow you to play to your potential. Because like I said, remember, you have to become the person who is deserving of that success. In order to become and have those results that you want, you've got to become that person. Having those physical abilities isn't enough. And that's why I created Basketball IQ Academy. Basketball IQ Academy is my full program that takes players to a completely new level when it comes to their understanding and their basketball IQ. It was designed to not just give you the tactics and the strategies you need to be successful, but to help give you a deep understanding of the principles behind it all. Again, like I mentioned, helping you become the person who is deserving of success, right? Not just a quick fix or a band-aid or whatever, but actually becoming the person. So you talk about having confidence in yourself and your abilities. A lot of times when there's a lack of confidence with the player, it's because they're focused on the strategies. They're focused on, the tactics. They're not yet the person yet. If you're the person and you know, hey, this is who I am. Who I am as a great basketball player. Who I am as a high IQ player. When you have that knowledge and that belief, you're going to be confident. You're going to play with confidence. And that's what Basketball IQ Academy is designed to give you. It's a little over 40 lessons, classroom sessions, film breakdowns, offensive and defensive diagrams, to help you learn the game on a whole new level. And just by going through and implementing these things that we've talked about in the system, you're going to completely change how you see the game, how you see yourself when it comes to your relationship to the game. And then it's going to change who you are as a player. So you score more points, you create more for yourself and for your teammates, and ultimately play with the confidence of somebody who truly understands the game and the principles that go behind being successful. So that's linked down below. Before we get to that, though, a really, really important thing you need to do, like I mentioned earlier, I have a completely free hour-long masterclass that goes through a ton of this stuff. So there's some of the stuff we talked about, but like to a whole nother level. My free Basketball IQ masterclass, absolutely you should check that out. Like I said, we're going to go through some of the stuff that we've already kind of touched on a little bit, but it's going to give you even more of an understanding of how to become a high-level playmaker for your team, score more, create more, develop some of the key mindsets and like the mentality that great players have. And what just the stuff inside of that program, like you can easily add 6-8 points per game like right away just by understanding the stuff that we do inside of that masterclass. Like I said, completely free, an hour long. And then, you know, once you get through that you can kind of evaluate and see if Basketball IQ Academy is right for you. But if you haven't gone through that masterclass, highly, highly recommend you do. That's linked right down below. Like I said, completely free. I appreciate you for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. Talk soon. Peace.